Welcome back, everybody. Next in line. Again, story stays the same. The mission and our North Star is about paying it forward to our community of subscribers. So I'm happy to introduce today a good friend. Happy to get to know him recently. His name is Mr. Albert Evans, former veteran as well. And Albert, do me a favor. No one's going to introduce yourself better than you. If you don't mind, can you share with the audience who you are and what your role is today? You know, what your role is and how you got here.
Okay, so I go by Al or Albert. I'm named after my father, so I kind of go by Albert for his benefit. And there, even though he's passed on now, I'm prior military, prior law enforcement, worked Fortune 500, 200 IT companies, Fortune 100 energy companies. You know, it's like a river, right? Those are successes. There's failures in there too, right? So you have to be resilient. Lifelong learner. I'm a technology enthusiast from way back in there. So
Always,
I
right?
love all things technology. Yeah, I just always thought technology was really cool. And my path didn't take me right into there because that's not where the opportunity was. But that's how you get there, right? Step by step.
I agree. Thanks for opening up like that because I definitely wanted to touch on that a little bit. So I got to double click a little bit about that. So on the Army, on the military experience in the Army, fun fact, right? Paratrooper, right? How long were you in the service for? And what was the ambulance?
So I did 4 years active duty, 2 years National Guard off of that. And the story on that. So my dad joined the Navy in World War II. So he's on the Bonahami Richard. I have a brother and 2 sisters. And our path was and my dad worked for the phone company. So after high school, everybody went in the military. My oldest in the family, the brother, he wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
So he mistakenly joined the Corps of Engineers in the Army, not the same engineering he wanted. But it was a pathway where he got experience and it gave him an opportunity for education to move towards a career he wanted. Then my sister, she went in the Army and she was one of the first WACs to go to Korea. So people don't even know what WACs are anymore. We don't have them. That was the Women's Army Corps, right? And they had all different uniforms. She was stationed near Seoul. She was got to go to Okinawa. They were in Wiesbaden in Germany. They spent a lot of time at Fort Meade. And then after her military time, she ended up retiring from NSA. And then off of that, my sister, she went in the Air Force. So she became a nurse in the Air Force. And she was in Florida, down in Eglin Air Force Base by Fort Walton Beach. And then from there, they left and they went to Alaska because they wanted to buy all new clothes. And they didn't like those clothes, so they went back to Florida. So she's still down in Florida there.
Right.
Yeah, and then I went in the Army. And what do you do when you're a kid, right? It's everybody grows up with different aspects of their family. So my dad, my mom's family, they were all veterans. That's what they did at the time. A lot of World War II veterans and Korean veterans. So you had that kind of carrying forward. And what was on TV at those time? It was John Wayne movies were on TV at that time. So you were saying like the D-Day movie or you'd say the Bridge Too Far movie, right? So you see the paratroopers are stuck in the tower or stuff like that. Also, one of the all-time favorites was John Wayne in the Green Berets movie. So you look at it and that kind of formulates thoughts in your head when you're a kid. So I enlisted 11 months before I graduated. And, I was in high school. I was a senior in high school and I enlisted in the Army. So it was in July after I graduated, I was going to go in, but I'd already been enlisted for 11 months. And off of that, you go and you enlist. It's like, go different times, you have different opportunities. How many people do we need in this group? Is this growing? Are we changing the standards here so we can get more in? So the opportunity for me is I went in to the 82nd Airborne Division was what my MS was. Went to basic training, advanced infantry training, airborne school on Fort Benning, stationed out of Fort Bragg, also there in North Carolina. Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg again, a different Bragg, right? Same base. So that's pretty much the path that I went into it. So I
Mhm.
was kind of motivated by family. I was
Family.
motivated into kind of a belief. It was a very kind of a patriotic, very much patriotic view
Right.
of, you need to do something, for your country. And the mindset is, um, the one thing that kind of caught mind, although I was in the 82nd, the motto for the special forces was to free the oppressed. And I always thought the idea of the military, you're not there, to impose your will on somebody else. You're not going there to kill somebody else. You're going there to free the oppressed. There's people in other countries that don't have the freedom that you have, that are suffering, that need help. And if
Right.
the country sends you in there to help those people, that's an obligation. So you need to defend your country, but you also need to help others.
Absolutely. Wow. Well said, man. I didn't know. So your whole family, even immediate family, and both your mother and father's side, I mean, all military. Were you the youngest?
I was the youngest, yeah. Yeah, and there was a lot of blue at that point. Nobody had went to college in the family because that was a different generation. My dad worked for the phone company. He was from Central Baltimore, right near Memorial Stadium was where he grew up.
Okay.
My mom was from South Baltimore, and on a story for that, my mom went to Southern High School in Baltimore City, and that later got converted into apartment building, and I lived in that building. So I lived
Wow.
in what was my mom's high school.
Really? They converted to to apartment buildings. Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. With different times, it wasn't. It was about, and also different times back then was my parents were like in that same area where they got married very young,
Yeah.
very young, like almost like literally out of high school, and then you go to the service. Or my dad too was in the Air Force, so I understand. I always was motivated to be in the military as long as I can remember. I don't know why, but I knew I didn't. I was joining the Navy because the only one thing I didn't want to do was I didn't want to be stationed somewhere in Mississippi or something. No disrespect to anybody, but I wanted to travel a little bit, so I got lucky in the
I,
service.
I love the weather, hate the mosquitoes. Yeah, that's a
Another, I got a good classic. You mentioned a couple classic movies. I got to run by you. The Dirty Dozen,
mhm,
classic. You might watch it this
classic.
weekend. I may have to watch it
Yeah.
this weekend. That's a good one. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorite.
when the movies weren't all about, the blood and the gore and heads exploding, and families could usually watch more of them, and they tend to try to have more of a message in there. But not
Oh yeah,
everybody would appreciate the message now. They're more patriotic messages put into them.
that's true. So let me ask you. So you went from being a paratrooper, right? Now right into law enforcement, and I got a lot of respect for that. It's my family too. Grew up in law enforcement. My sister, DEA. My father was retired homicide detective in New York City. What prompted you to go there, law enforcement?
Okay, so I was in the military. I got married while I was in the military. Before I got out, my wife became pregnant. So I had planned on going to college after the military, but now I had a family to take care of. So I said, what's the best job somebody can get, you know, coming out of the military, as a paratrooper going in? It's not like people were hiring paratroopers to do, corporate work at that time. So I applied to law enforcement. So I ended up applying for the Maryland State Police, and I didn't know at the time, but there were, at my class of 40 had like 10,000 applicants. I had no
Wow,
idea. I had
that's
no idea it was that many. And I think the thing that helped get me in was my military experience, which was more unique. Most of the people had college degrees, and many had college degrees and military experience. So I think my military experience kind of helped get me through that, because who knows what would have happened if that one would have fell through.
oh yeah,
But that was a period. That was like I got out in May, and I went in the state police academy the following February. In between, I worked three jobs.
really,
So every day I would work at least two jobs, except Sunday I only worked one job. So, you're up early, you're starting one work by 6, and you're working until like 10 or 11 at night. So I worked at a health food store. I worked at a country club where if I worked during the day shift, I did maintenance. If I worked the night shift, I did security. And I would work at both shifts depending on where they needed work.
wow,
And I also, I taught an aerobics class at Coppin
oh,
State University.
I
So
feel
you can imagine back at that time when people
diverse
hear
background, man.
aerobics, yeah, you have to think more Olivia Newton-John aerobics at that time period. Now, in my experience, I could not do that. Anyone who has seen me attempt to dance knows I
No.
cannot do that. But out of the military, I was really good at doing like a boot camp type course. So I
Oh,
was doing what today would be like a cardio boot camp,
sure.
but at the time it was just called aerobics because that's what things were called then.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it is an interesting, yeah. If it was dancing involved, that would not have went well.
You probably wouldn't have
Uh,
qualified, you think? You wouldn't have made the cut?
Maybe if they wanted to do it like a humor area, that would have worked. But
I love it.
yeah, for a boot camp, I could definitely do a boot camp then.
I love it. So 3 jobs. So that because you had a family, you say, you know what, I'm
To pay health
doing it for
insurance, right?
my
You got to pay everything else. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have excuses, right? You just gotta make it work. Right.
Yeah.
And then you went into obviously the police department. How much time you spent in the police department?
I was okay. So the first of all, the State Police Academy is a quasi military academy at the time. It was 24-week living academy. So you lived there, you had weekends off, but you lived there during the week. It was the
Okay.
kind of thing where they would like, you'd get off the bus and they'd yell out to make you do push ups, but then you laugh at them a little bit because you were in the military. So they get angry and they'd make you do more push ups. But, if you've never been in the military, it was pretty traumatic. But
For
compared to the
sure.
military experience, it was like, you have to step it up because those guys were, when I was in the military, were much more extreme.
Oh, like
So
a
I was
equal
in this,
to
yeah,
service, right?
yeah. I was in the state police a little over 12 years, and it was kind of broken up into three phases. So the first phase, I did uniform road patrol, and I worked in very urban areas, and I worked in very rural areas. I worked in very urban area because I wanted to get the most experience and most activities. I went to the busiest state police barrack. Later, I went to buy a house, and at that time, a state trooper was making $19,800. A Baltimore City bus driver was making over 31,000. So it was a
Yeah.
big pay difference. So I ended up getting a house on the Eastern Shore. Um, at that time, I had two young children, and during that time, my oldest, my firstborn son, got cancer. So off of that, then I kind of transferred around a lot, trying to get close to the hospital. I take some leave to live in the hospital some. And then I'd work at a nearby barrack. I lived at the barrack. Some of the state police barracks used to have like cots in the back.
Sure.
So most of the time I either lived at the state police barrack or the hospital during that time period. Uh,
Oh,
I had wanted to go in the criminal investigation division. I had a request in for a long time.
mhm.
But that went on and I finally got an interview, but the interview was when my son's funeral was. My son passed away 10 days before his fifth birthday after 15 months. So that
So
was
sorry.
challenging there.
I know it's a long time ago, but I mean, it's pray for you. Just because I could imagine. I can imagine.
Well, it's always difficult, but the reason I say it is not like a pity party for me, but to understand that everybody has stuff going on in their life that you don't know about. And everybody has had wonderful things and horrible things happen to them. And whatever happens to somebody else, they're not alone. And they can build resilience and move through it. It's not going to be easy. Some things you don't fully recover from, but you have to move forward.
Absolutely.
But then I was working one day and a friend of mine asked me, there was a temporary assignment called security services where they would send extra troopers down to do security for the legislation when it's in session. I
Okay.
said, okay, look, it's cold, it's snowy, it's rainy, I'm working shift work. This might be a fun deal for a couple months, right? So it's okay. So I got to do that. And that was kind of fun. And I was there, they had an opening in the governor's detail. And they said, would you like to do this job in the governor's detail? I said,
Oh,
sure.
okay.
That sounds like something different to do.
Okay.
So I went into executive protection. So I worked with two different governors. I worked the last 2 years of Governor Schaefer and the first 2 years of Governor Clendenny in
Wow.
there. So working executive protection was sometimes stressful and sometimes interesting, different dynamics. You're working with a lot of different people and groups in different ways than you were before.
Hmm.
Got some unique experiences. So when the Pope visited Baltimore, I was on the security detail for the church where the Pope was at, and the Pope came in. I met the Pope. So that was a unique experience. We were in an area, got to go to many kind of cool things because the governor didn't always stay for the whole game, but he would go to big sporting events. So we've been like on the court in Maryland Terrapin games, like, against, North Carolina and Duke, big rivalries at the time.
Oh, my goodness.
Been to Camden Yards a lot of times. I've got to be in the dugout in Camden Yards. Um, we went to get to go to the White House a bunch of times. Now, of course, the governor goes, in the hobnob, and the Secret Service takes us to the basement. But
Yeah,
it's still pretty cool because they kind of give you a tour and
for
they take
sure.
good care of you off of that. And I was there when Bill Clinton threw out an opening pitch, Camden Yards. I was with the governor. So I'm standing next to the governor on the pitcher's mound next to Bill Clinton where he throws out the opening pitch. So, these are just, like unique experiences. So nothing, I didn't do anything special to earn that experience. I just happened to be there.
Uh-huh.
But it was still kind of a fun, kind of a cool thing to do. So there's a lot of cool
So
things
cool.
like that we got to do.
That's great.
Uh, I had always been a technology enthusiast. I just love technology.
Yeah.
And as soon as I could get a computer, I got it. I was, kind of playing around with operating systems, different operating systems, trying to build computers, trying to understand how they work. And I got in, there was a chance I was supposed to go with the governor to the National Governors Association in Puerto Rico. And
Hmm.
my lieutenant knew that, I really liked technology. He said, "Hey, if you don't go in this detail, I can temporarily lend you out to this computer crimes unit." I said, "Okay, that sounds okay." So I would have liked to go to Puerto Rico. Sorry, Puerto Rico. Maybe I'll get to visit you soon. To all my military, a lot of Puerto Ricans I served with in the military. So
But then one
maybe
right
I'll
here.
see that some of them sometime. Yeah. So I went to computer crimes, and that time that unit had like a total of 3 people. It was like the person in charge and 2 people doing work. So I got there that week, and then I did a pretty a search warrant off of that one, and I'll tell you a little bit. So the search warrant, it was a little bit. Which one was this one? There was a couple bizarre search warrants we did. So this was a search warrant, and this was more of a child exploitation type case, where the
Right.
person had volunteered, and he would go into DC, and he would get, it was orphans of like people who had AIDS, who were really ill or had passed away. And he'd take them up and he'd take care of them for like the weekend, do stuff, and bring them back. It's a service they had, but he
Okay.
was abusing the children.
Oh, Lord.
So we did the search warrant for that, and that was we got him, we arrested him. He went to jail.
Hmm.
Doesn't help the victims. That's the area in law enforcement. You realize all the attention's on the person who commits the crime, none of the attention's on the victims. Not enough emphasis on the victims. But anyway, we were able to stop that one. It's a pretty good case. Went pretty good. And next thing you know, a transfer list came out, and I got assigned to the computer crimes unit. We worked a couple other ones. We had another case we had, and I was working, and I got a call from somebody at one of the other state police barracks saying, "Hey, we got this missing person case."
Hmm.
And the husband, we're not quite sure about him. Something doesn't seem right, but we don't know if he's involved. He's got a computer, and we'd like you to see if you can't find anything in the computer. I said, sure. And I talked to my boss. He goes, "Oh no, we're not going to do that. It's a missing person case, right?
Hmm.
We're not going to be involved." So I said, after work, I said, when I get off work, I'll come over and do the search warrant. So that night, I drove, and this is not driving in the direction of my house. So I was already lived
No.
multiple counties from. We were a statewide operation based
Oh.
central Maryland. I was, like 70 miles away was my house. His barracks the opposite direction. So we go the opposite direction. We work with the guy. We do the search warrant. We interview the husband. We get the computer, and I'm looking, and we're doing the case. We're finding all this stuff, and
Hmm.
I'm going, "Hey, I think she was killed. I think she's either was murdered in New Jersey or North Carolina." And
Hmm.
nobody would believe me. Like, "Oh no, that could happen." No, and every day I think, "Here's what I'm finding," every day. And like a week later, they said, "Oh." And next thing you know, they called the New Jersey State Police. We did an area with them. We did a search warrant. We got to the guy. The guy confessed to the fact that he met her and he tortured her, but he did not kill her. And she left. And that was the bizarre part of the case. And then we kept working the case, and I found out that she did go down to North Carolina, which I always thought was interesting. It's Lenore, North Carolina. So it always makes me think of the poem "The Raven" by So, and Robin is like, Lenore Nevermore, right? Because she was from Baltimore, and she ends up being murdered in Lenore,
Mm.
North Carolina. But she was tortured, murdered, and buried in North Carolina. And they were able to find the suspect, arrest the suspect, convict the suspect, retrieve her body so she could have a proper funeral. But
Lord.
the case, the nature, there's more to than that. But it was just so bizarre at that time.
So it's like two
Uh,
people. Like there was he was
there
tortured, and then somebody else killed him?
tortured her and then killed her.
Oh my, that's
So so um So it's just really bizarre, and it got a lot of attention. The superintendent of state police was on Good Morning America. For that, people from Europe were coming over, and people used to call us like the X Files. And they used to want, people would come over from the other part of the criminal investigation division, intelligence, and hey, what are you working on now? Because it was just so
or
crazy the
can you
stuff
work
we
on
would say.
these, right? Like, can you help
It, it,
me these cold
it,
cases? I guess maybe.
It'd be crazy because, yeah, because you would say most computer crimes or other crimes facilitate. Right now is really common. People know technology is involved in everything, but back then it wasn't as common.
Yes.
But it was people didn't really realize it was being used in that way. So it's very bizarre. But that really helped us get a lot of funding, and we grew. We had other cases where we had the guy we called the Mustard Man. And this was a case, this was a pedophile case for this individual. He was a French national. And we used to do a lot of partnerships. We'd work with, we had MOU agreements, Secret Service. And at times it was customs before it was ICE, right? So it was customs at that point, and with postal. And we work it where like postal would like get a uniform in a truck to do a controlled delivery, working with customs. That would be part of the search warrant. We do the search warrant. We're doing the search warrant. It's like, we know we did delivery. We know he received the package. We can't find the package.
Hmm.
We know it's in there, right? And we're tearing this ass up. And then we find out underneath the floorboards, he had the area where he had taken and hidden the package that came. But then we found a bunch of other content into it.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of other content in there off of
Oh,
that one. So I won't get into that detail. But we
smart.
called him the mustard man because he had this area where he had all these jars of mustard. Empty jars, full jars, partially full
Mustard.
jars. Like, what's he doing with all the? It's like 100 jars of mustard. I
God, he
still don't know
loved
what he did
mustard.
with the mustard. We started as, hey, is he doing? And we also found some counterfeiting plates also that he had. So we were working Secret Service. Like, could they be using the mustard for some kind of dye for counterfeiting?
Mm,
I don't know. So there's a So sometimes there's multiple crimes involved
sure.
in there that you run into. So you have to be open. Like we did one. It was a meth lab. And the interesting thing with the meth lab, we were doing it with ATF, but this wasn't that long after Waco. So ATF were wonderful people, right? But after Waco, it's like, I don't know if we can go in. They had like the special suits, like they're going to land on Mars, right?
Yeah,
Because it's
I
a
got
meth lab. We have nothing. And like, well, you do this search warrant
you.
because, over the Waco. I said, yeah, I have no suit.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
I can
You
explode.
know,
You,
I'm in a
you're
pair of
trenching.
jeans. I think I had a Beretta 9mm at that time. Yeah, we'll go attack the meth lab. When we seize it, then you can come in with the suits.
Yeah.
So we did that, and we did a meth lab off of that one, and we did kind of the computer support for ATF as part of an MOU agreement.
Oh
And we
man.
did a lot of that work then because computer crimes was still new. Now, so many of these agencies have very robust capabilities, but at
I
the
can see
time, it
them
was everybody working together. The benefit of the state federal area is there's different charges you can do. So you might go into it. It might be really easy for us to get a search warrant. It might be really easy for them to get a subpoena, right?
now. Mm,
So you can go. What is the legal way to be most efficient in doing the investigation? It still has to be done correctly. It's all going to court,
sure.
but there are different ways you can use each other's strengths.
Absolutely. That's
And
a
uh, and we and I'll do my last search warrant one. We did one. I did this with the county police department, same thing.
mhm.
And they had their whole SWAT team. And they said, the SWAT teams are we're going to go in the back. We want you to go in the front. And
By yourself,
I was
and
by,
then
my, yeah, I was by myself. They had a SWAT team. And also in the front was a fenced in yard, and they had a llama in the front.
a llama.
Yeah, they didn't want to go past the llama because the llama, they bite and they spit. And,
They do. They do.
everybody,
Like, oh, now I
yeah,
know.
yeah. So you see kind of like bizarre things
Yeah.
in there. Well, the trooper motto was like one trooper, one riot, one trooper. Because when you work in the Eastern Shore, there might be two troopers working. One has the north half of the county, one has the south half.
Okay.
In urban areas, there are more,
I'll
but
say
there are fewer of you than of other people, so you will
oh,
get less help.
ah, so that one, I don't remember sharing. So that last case was, you said it was you had to bust in somewhere. What kind of case
Oh
was
yeah,
it?
that was a drug case.
Drug case. Okay.
Yeah, that was a drug case. So yeah, you could imagine it's a drug case because he's got a llama in his front yard, right? So, you know,
Who has an exotic llama? So I have to bring this up just because you brought this up. Have you ever heard of an organization called Red M?
no,
So I recently I just dedicated a lot of my time to being on the board for the Miami chapter. They're a national organization for the fight for human trafficking.
uh,
And based out of Houston, I realized how it opened my eyes. I mean, it's really hard to stomach, my friend. You know what I'm talking about. And
mm,
they don't want money. They don't want any of this stuff. What they want is like spread awareness and training and meeting with corporate organizations because it's nothing stops this stuff. Poverty, it's not just poverty or, rough neighborhoods or, kids from other countries. It's shockingly how sophisticated these people are and the networks that go after everybody. So,
yeah,
I share that with you because I know that you were in law enforcement for 12 years, you did computer crimes, especially some of the stuff that you were around. It's an ugly thing, man. And I just feel like if we have an opportunity to, dedicate time, like we have to, right?
and,
So
and that's
make,
important because if you look at it, this is uniform no matter whatever type of thing I've responded to or investigated with in law enforcement, any capacity I was in. It's always a suspect shows up and they're wearing a suit and their parents are with them and their priest might come in with them and they look like a wonderful person.
Mhm.
Where's the victim?
That's right.
And and sometimes a victim, it was a fraud or a theft, and that could be really hurtful to somebody. Okay, their trust of in life, it can really, impact a lot of their life savings.
For
But then
sure.
when you look at some of the other ones for some of these crimes of violence and sex crimes in these areas, some people are never going to overcome those.
No, it's
And you're seeing it, and somebody goes, "Well, we're going to give them 5 years in prison. They're due 2 years." Well, this person's been damaged for life. That's not really justice in that area where that comes in. So there's not enough emphasis put on to the victims to make sure they get just outcomes, and victims for after the fact to make sure they get appropriate care.
that's such a good point, man. That's yeah, because that may never heal, man. Like you're right for life. I mean, there's some pretty courageous people that are part of Red End that have helped and come out and, part of the education. That's why I was like, man, it's just something like, I grew up in law enforcement. I didn't take that path, but this is kind of my way to kind of contribute a little bit.
Yeah.
Because my sister, she just retired. She retired special agent in charge of New Jersey, DEA.
Oh,
So she did really well
good.
for herself. Now she's doing
Yeah.
her thing, and very proud of her. My little sister, she was a Marine too, and now she's a bigwig at Deloitte. I'm like,
Oh,
look at you, they're my little sister. What's up with that?
yeah.
she's
Yeah.
she's a person.
She's doing well at Deloitte. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And she did, especially in charge. You know what that is? I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty high
Yeah.
end.
Well,
So
one
it's
is
just
a
wow.
one is
Both.
a high amount of responsibility and title, but the other one is a higher amount of compensation. So it's kind of like getting the compensation for all your life's work at the end there.
Oh yeah, I tell her, probably a little less stressful. What do you think? She says a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So obviously that's where the segue is, right? Because I know you're CISO and Chief Information Security Officer. So computer crimes, you got into that. Did you go into when did you get into corporate IT and corporate
Okay.
security? When did that
So the
transition?
path, sure. So the path was I was in computer crimes. And at this point, I have a little over 12 years. State place retirement is 25. I could use my military time towards retirement if I want to.
Okay.
So that was a nice perk. And we had a pretty good retirement. Like if we stayed to the maximum time, you could retire up to like 70% of salary and you had some benefits. So there are some good reasons to stay. But at this point, it was like it was just around the year, it was just 2000, right? The year
Mm,
2000 came. And we could kind of see where technology was going in the
okay.
future. So the computer crimes unit then it went from the two-piece person team I was on to a division.
Oh,
at this
wow.
point. So we had grown because people understood the work, and the work was constantly, and it was ridiculous amount of work. I was doing mandatory 20 hours a week overtime. There was just so much work to do. And it's statewide. So I'd be in one end of the state in the morning, one end of the state at night, and then you're trying to work, in there. It was a
Travel
lot.
a lot too. It's a
A
lot.
lot of, yeah. So, but that wasn't it. It was stressful work, but rewarding work. It's stressful because there's always a victim,
Yeah.
and you're always trying to do. That's the obligation. Anything you do, you always put yourself in the victim. And this was me. This is my parents. This is my brother and sister. This is my friends. What would I want somebody to do? And you push yourself to go that far. And that's really where the stress comes in, because you're trying to go as far as you can go. And you can never go far enough for the victim.
No.
But the Department of Defense Cyber Crime Center had just cut the ribbons on their building. And
Oh,
I'd had some friends who had started working there, and they kind of recruited me and said, "Hey, you should come to this."
pretty
And I
cool.
said, "Well, look, I love technology. Um, and I was prior military, and we know Department of Defense tends to operate high level maturity, right? And they're well funded, so it's not they're going to be trying to do the cheap solution; they're going to go for the best solution.
Sure.
So I was fortunate enough to get in there, and at that time when they first started, it was like 97% government contractors,
Mm.
um, which gave it a really fun startup feel. It wasn't I'm in the military and here's a civilian person and here's a contractor person. It was we're just on this team and here's what we're trying to do. And nobody cared what anybody's title or role was. We were
That's
all
pretty
mission
cool.
focused. So we were mission cofocused, and that was cool. And came in and we started. It was just like a few of us. It wasn't very big. We only did a few things, but we kind of had a vision. And over there, it was very much like you might do a startup today. I mean, the names were different for the terminology, but it was very much like you do journey mapping,
Mhm.
where every stakeholder would have a persona, and they'd all have needs, they'd all have wants, they all have dislikes.
Sure.
So you do a process to gather all that data, and then off of that, you would build whatever the product was that they needed to solve their pain, and then you deliver that product to them, a service delivery, and you'd collect evals and everything on feedback. How are we doing? And you'd have an annual, like a needs assessment is what they call it, but it could have different names in marketing, where you get more feedback. How are
Sure.
we doing? Did this meet your needs? Do we need to further iterate this product? Is there a different product you need us to build? Should it
Mm.
be part of this or should it be separate? And then we would keep building and adding on. So I stayed there and I worked my way up from where I started to I was a program manager there for the last 2 years.
Okay.
We had over 50 technical staff. We had administrative staff. We had did wide range of projects. We did lots of kind of cool things. Some unique things came in through the global war and terror, right? So there would be unique areas.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I'm on the battlefield. Somebody destroyed this computer equipment. I can't send it to Virginia and wait a year to find out the information. I need the intelligence information right now so I can act immediately. How do I do that?
Real time.
Right. So it gave us an idea as technology was emerging
Mhm.
and as operational situations were changing, it got us to work in different areas to kind of stretch out. How do we solve these different problems? Like when I started, it was very much Sun Microsystems. The network is the computer, right? And then that quickly went into like everything's going to Windows, everything. And it's a big
Yeah.
shift in IT
Absolutely.
structures.
Mhm.
And that changes a lot of things from a big network intrusion area. Like how do we protect the system? How do we respond to it? How do we get the data off of it, forensically? All these different questions would come in as technology was emerging because you were ahead of the curve. So you were always ahead of the curve because everybody had solved the problem. They didn't need us, right? You were
Yeah.
there trying to solve the problem that hadn't been solved yet. And then later, everybody else would standardize something on it. So it was a lot of fun stuff we got to do there. And like when I run into people back from that time, everybody says it's the most fun job they had.
And it's a
Uh,
Department of Cyber Crimes.
yeah, it goes by DC3, but it's the
DC.
Department of Defense Cybercrime Center. You know how DoD loves their acronyms.
Oh
They,
yeah.
they, they have some doozies in there. But yeah, but
Wow. How long did you
so
run? How long was that run for you?
I was there for 6 years, and I was a program manager for 2 years. The 2 years before that, I was a technical lead.
Okay.
So it was a lot of I worked with a lot of great people. It was an area where people would come in and they would work and they would stay and they would work and like after hours they would work because what they had the passion and the aptitude and they believed in the mission. We used to kind of talk about it. I'm gonna get this horribly wrong because it's been so long, but we would talk about, you know, the terrorist attacks on 9/11 and all the people that died, and maybe special forces units out in the front lines, and those special forces unit are the pointy end of the spear, and it's our job to sharpen the pointy end of the spear. So we would look at doing as a support role everything we could to help be an enabler for their mission. And then people could look at it and go, what I'm doing is important. We could maybe prevent a terrorist attack. We could maybe help somebody do a mission where their lives are saved and others' lives are saved. So
100%.
that gave a high degree of commitment. I had people that we'd be brainstorming an idea. We'd end on a Friday. They'd come in on Monday. They look like they're going to fall over. They haven't slept, and they'd go, "Hey, I wrote this like 200-page document. I researched this all weekend. They didn't sleep all weekend."
Just didn't stop. They love
So
they're committed to the mission, and you
yeah,
won't feel like you're working.
yeah. So that high, and when you get that, it makes the job more fulfilling for everyone
Mhm.
because it's not a paycheck. It's something that you believed in doing, and it's something that was a shared accountability and shared belief. And that's the area. You have to have shared accountability because it makes all of us perform at our best, right? And you need a shared belief really helps support that.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, kind of get the podcast, like, just it's kind of ahead of schedule in our pit from a growth perspective because we didn't even plan this way. It was just because it's mission driven about paying it forward. And so many people have kind of latched onto it. So, we're grateful and, to that because now I'm experiencing myself. So I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Like, and I get to do this one too, because I was always wanting to do this with my daughter. My daughter's a co-host. So I get to do, hang out with her and do this stuff. So I couldn't agree with you more on the mission. And, I think leaders today, if they look at things like that, I mean, I think you can get a lot of success because things, it's more than money, I mean, create opportunity. I mean, you can see people really give them an opportunity. They, surround themselves with the right people, like-minded with the right mission. You can win a couple of games like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think so.
Or championships, even.
A couple months ago, I looked at about 35 documents from Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Management Review, MIT Technology Review, and Wharton. And I kind of pulled them all together. And we were looking at what I was looking at is implementing strategy. So often you hear people, the senior leaders go, here's our strategy. And that's communicated down to middle management, and it never makes it to the people. People do the work, they don't understand why. If you want to empower people, right? Everybody you hire is for their brain power. And if you just tell them, be a lemming, make the donuts, they're just going to go for it. And that's all they're going to do. But if you can explain to them what the strategy is, why they're doing it, they can go, well, wait a second. I've been doing this. If I do that instead, we're going to be able to do automation or we're going to improve this or we're going to do this. And then your people are your fuel for your success. You got to convey missions that matter to the people doing the work. Continuous process improvement starts with the person doing the process. The ideas that drive your future starts with the people doing the work. They need to understand where you're trying to go. They need to be empowered and have the confidence to speak up and go, we're going the wrong way or there's a better way because they drive the change that makes a success. The better you're able to do that, the more successful your company will be. But the
Agreed.
failing is often in a middle management area where that message doesn't get pushed down or they're not open to receiving that message. And that really hurts the overall work of the company.
I, man, you got to figure, you see me getting distracted. I'm writing a lot of notes here. You have a lot of wisdom, my friend.
Doodling, you're doodling, I know.
Big time, man. Like you have so many quotes here. Like, and by the way, I mean, these are phenomenal. You have a lot of wisdom, a lot of wisdom. Let me ask you this. So what was your first kind of transition?
So
When did you become a CISO? What,
when I left the Department of Defense Cyber Crime Center, which was a job I loved doing. to take a job as a deputy CISO for Computer Sciences Corporation. So they went by CSC. They were founded in the 50s. They were one of the largest IT services companies.
Oh
They
yeah.
were in 80 different countries. About a third of the business was U.S. public sector, which is government work. But we did public sector work across that. We were one of the first 30 members of the Department of Defense, Defense Industrial Base, Cybersecurity Information Assurance Program. People commonly call that the DIB. There are probably hundreds of members of the DIB now. Back then, they used to negotiate frameworks for each member, and it was a really heavy lift area, and there was a lot of sharing requirements, and there was both classified and unclassified sharing. But it was, I think, the best program that I was a member of because it's where people would come in there and they would you'd have areas where they would share, here's what we did, here's what worked and what didn't work, here's what happened, here's how we responded, here's what worked. And people were really open and sharing detailed information, which made everybody better.
For sure.
So it was the most, because of the framework was much a heavy lift to go through, it made it also the best.
And you're
And also
hearing
that environment.
kinds too,
Yeah.
so different perspectives, right, within the organization.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
and my hats still go off to Lockheed Martin because in the early years like that, Lockheed Martin was a huge contributor to that. They did the cyber kill chain, what they came up with. They were very aggressive at sharing
Mhm.
openly like that. So there were a number of partners that were very key, but
That's,
they always stood out to me as their willingness to be open and to share to help others.
and
Um,
that's where you transition for the first time and become the CISO.
Yeah, so we did global ops. So one of the things I was brought in is to kind of look at trying to build global security operations maturity.
Okay.
And it was still pretty much the Wild West at that time. There weren't a lot of good security tools. We had a lot of good security people. So I had the global security architecture team. I had regional security architecture teams under me, certification accreditation team, policy, security awareness. I had the SOC underneath of that. We had a threat intelligence group. We had digital forensic groups regionally throughout that. So, and our CISO, who had retired from the Royal Air Force, he was based in the UK. So he was on board for that, and I was kind of close. I worked out of Annapolis Junction, which is the business park on the. There's a bridge across from NSA where Annapolis Junction is, and a lot of defense contractors had office space over in there. And
Wow.
I also worked, we had our campus was in Falls Church, Virginia, and that's where our CIO was. So I reported to the CISO. I had a dotted line to our CIO. I had a dotted line to our VP of cybersecurity, who was our service outside facing one.
Okay.
And it would be either, eat our own dog food or drink our own champagne, depending on how you want to sell it, right? One
Yeah.
that sounds better, but more expensive. Um,
Pendulum
so
around.
we had like 10 centers of excellences. We were always doing evaluations of different products. We find the best product right for us, but if we found two or three that were really good, we could package that in for services. By using it internally, let us do a lot of testing, documentation, lessons learned, which was really good for a sales side when that came into play. So that worked really good, gave us a lot of exciting things, worked with lots of great people.
Did you
Um,
you spend time on mostly the so it was an internal CIC, or was it also, I mean, CSC, right? Or was it external, like client facing?
it was primarily internal. Our client facing one would come into play. So first of all, representations in groups like the DIB, that's still internal, but you're outside facing. You worked with legal a lot. When we looked at the Center of Excellence for Services, we would be looking at it at product development and service development,
Okay.
but we weren't the product or service. We'd be a stakeholder. We'd go, we've evaluated this internally, we've done this documentation, and then we would feed it into the person building the product or services that would be in delivery. And sometimes things would happen where you're externally facing and you're talking to clients in that area. So the primary focus was internal, but you can have some external bleed over. Now, the good and bad is you got to remember this is the period of 2006 to around 2013. And the first time I used CrowdStrike was in 2013. That was the first time that I used an EDR. During most of this time, security tools were not very good, right? So we pretty much continuously had a nation state intrusion going on, one at a time, sometimes two, somewhere here, somewhere they're working. And you have to be creative. We're going, you know, we had like in case enterprise in there to do forensics. That's okay. After the for work, you can do security architecture, trying to address problems, trying to be proactive. We had some Net Witness deployment, and Net Witness was a RSA product at that time.
Mhm.
I don't know who owns it now. I kind of merged, acquired. I think it's still around.
Tons of acquisitions
Uh,
in this space. Tons.
yeah, so all around. So we have some capabilities, but there were a lot of gaps in security, and threat actors were way ahead of the game. So one advantage for that is we got a really good understanding to how threat actors operated. So now we can look at like MITRE ATT&CK as being a good framework that does the tools, techniques, and procedures that threat actors are going to do. But
Okay.
then we kind of got to look at how do you defend differently. A lot of people go, well, I looked at the cybersecurity framework and they told me to do this. Or I looked at these controls and they told me to do that.
Sure.
But what we learned is what are threat actors going to exploit? And how can I proactively prevent that? What are the most painful things I need to prevent
Mm.
first to prioritize? So it gives us a different idea. So even if I look at these other frameworks, I often tend to go back to that time of working all this intrusion activity. And I did so we did a lot of these internally, and we did a lot of them customer facing. The largest intrusion I worked at was for a customer site, and it was huge. It was their managed cloud area was compromised, their Active Directory was compromised, their service accounts. It was the worst compromise I have ever seen in my entire life, right? And it'd been compromised at least 7 years, right?
7.
So yeah, that's as far as the logs go back. So we don't know how long. And a lot of that because the tools, the technology just wasn't there to do some of the detections. And if you weren't aggressively pushing, trying to do as far as you could go, you were never going to find it. And some companies maybe didn't want to find it because then you'd have to report it.
Oh,
So and
yeah, regulatory environments, right?
yeah. So, but that was a good area to get lessons learned. So as other tools came in, we got the shape to go. You really have to address this problem and first, and this problem second,
Sure.
right? Because these areas. If you look at like your cybersecurity framework or something else, there might be many ways you can do it. You look good on the framework, and you look good for your audit. But if you're looking trying to actually stop the problem from ever happening in the first place, or being able to minimize it if it happens to recover quickly, there's a different approach you need to take. So you need to look at it more from the threat actors' views for what they need to do to achieve their objective.
I agree.
So kind of blending those together.
I wrote that one down. Like, what are the most painful things that I need to protect? I can think about a lot of different things, not just for security, but just business continuity. So, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot out there, but yeah, and it's a little different. Every company, depending on what your mission, you might kind of weight things slightly different.
Sure.
But I think I could walk in a company, ask a number of questions an hour, and I could give you a kind of assessment, which might be 90% right. Based on what your business is and a couple of questions I ask, I could say, you probably need to look at these things more.
Oh, for
And,
sure.
and that's just off an hour assessment, so it won't be 100%.
Too deep,
But
but you can get. You've been doing this long enough. You can spot
yeah,
some things and recommend some things pretty quickly.
yeah. And, I always think of, when I think of threat actors, it makes me think of the first Jurassic Park movie. And there's Jeff Goldblum, and he's in there, and the scientist is trying to tell him why, the dinosaurs can't have babies because they engineered them that way. And he goes, well, how do you know? Life finds a way. And that's what threat actors are. Threat actors don't care if you followed the best practices from Microsoft and implemented the CIS control. Threat actors are going to try to find a way. They're going to look for a vulnerability. They're going to exploit. Yeah, they're going to exploit something that you operational drift, something that you didn't patch in time, something that you missed, or something that even though you follow the best practices, they can circumvent. So you have to understand that's how threat actors are thinking. So you need to think that way in countering them.
It's a mindset. It's awareness
Yeah,
training, right? Let me ask you
yeah,
on that, like with your background, like that, I'm talking to you, learning about everything. Like you have such a strong leadership background and where you came up and very interesting experience. And then you're talking to you, you're really deep on from a security perspective. Um, where do you like? Do you favor one another? Like, like, like do you lean one more like the tech stuff versus the leadership stuff? In that type of role, like where do you feel a leader needs to have in order to be very successful in that C-suite?
That's a great question. And I think that answer goes into, like it takes a village, it takes a team. So everyone has a different passion and a different expertise. So let me go back before we get even the technology to go to the leadership. First, you have to know what your own authentic leadership style is. So many people become leaders for the wrong reason. I want more money. I don't want to do the work, right? Those are lower level managers. You're not going to be successful. The best leaders are people who go, I have the vision. I want to accomplish this vision. I'm happy with doing the work and sharing the knowledge to take the team in that vision. But if the leadership, doesn't want to take it or handle that way, then I'm willing to step up and take the lead, right, to drive it forward. So that's what you have to do. Your driver has to be to drive a vision that you think is better. And then when you step in there, you have to recognize the responsibility. Leadership is now taking responsibility for all the people under you. Tremendous weight on them, right? Are you making their life easier? Are you making their life harder? Are you helping them reskill, upskill, and build knowledge and learning that makes their job more rewarding? It makes their career advancement more assured. It makes their career stability more assured. Or are you making their life miserable in the middle? What you're doing to your people in that area over the next 10, 20, 30 years for them and their family could mean a happy, stable career that progresses upward in the path they want. Or it could mean somebody that now is unhappy or is jumping a job because you didn't meet their needs and now maybe it's not in their best situation. Huge responsibility.
100%.
So you have to double down on constantly learning everything you can about management and leadership, but that doesn't mean you do what somebody else says. Somebody else might go, here's what a leader is. There's tons of leadership books that are good. And I recommend reading books and I recommend listening to other people speak in TED Talks, but you're listening to go, what ideas represent your authentic leadership, not trying to copy theirs. My favorite grounding for building authentic leadership is I like Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. So that was his diary, which is now a book, and is some of his teachings from Plato. And I like this aspect because I don't want people to think, read the book, this is what I need to do to be an authentic leader. You read the book and ask yourself, do I believe that? Do I believe that's right? What do I think is right? And that's an area for you to build what your authentic leadership is. You may agree or disagree with his point,
Mhm.
but by questioning that helps you build your authentic leadership.
That's deep. That's real.
So, so first, build your authentic leadership. Then off of that, for me, I like the operation side more. Compliance is important. Businesses have to stay compliant. Compliance is boring. Compliance is easier. Compliance is collecting evidence, mapping the framework. You
Sure.
want to find ways to automate that because it's critical to the business and it can take a lot of level of effort, but it's not a unique skill that somebody couldn't do.
Okay.
Anybody can read, here's a compliance standard, here's what I need to meet it, right? But I like more of the idea of looking proactively. What is the company trying to achieve from the business? What is the technology stack they're going to use to achieve that business goal? How do you most effectively secure that technology stack to achieve the business goal? You want to try to be an enabler in the area of secure business operations because nothing interrupts business operation and IT operations more than a security incident. If you do work and you're proactive and nothing ever happens, people, nothing happened. Why do we need to do it? Well, the goal of nothing happening is sometimes if something happens, that's a whole lot of time and money and resources. A small breach could cost $1 million or $3 million, right? By the time you get done handling it,
Mhm.
that's a pretty big deal.
That's a huge.
And
It could be
yeah,
crippling, or it can be a death sentence for a company.
yeah. Yeah, and think of a major ransomware attack or a wiperware attack. So it's looking like ransomware, but it's just trying to be destructive, right? Same issues. So you have to be proactive. And when I look at it from the shift, so people used to ask me, what keeps you up at night? I
Yeah.
thought, well, nothing really keeps me up. And I've been doing this a long time. I kind of have a good idea where the threats are and pretty proactive. But now I started earlier this year, looking regularly about what I'm concerned with is offensive AI. What I'm talking about is AI used by threat actors. So you could take the person who wrote the really bad phishing email. Now they're writing a really good phishing email, much more effective. You can look at the nation state or the cybercrime groups. And you go, now with AI, it's an enabler. So you can compress all the aspects of your attack. You can fuse together all the open source data. You can fuse together any data you have expelled. You can tailor attacks better. Everything can be faster. So it used to be in decades past, low and slow. Let's not be detected. We'll stay here forever. But now you have a lot better tools in place. It's much harder not to get detected forever. So now I think the more of the trend is fast and furious. We can just move so fast they can't catch us. It doesn't matter if they see what we're doing. They're behind us. We'll achieve our objective before they can stop us.
So it's kind of
So
it's like being on offense a lot,
yeah,
high powered offense, right? Fast.
yeah, yeah. So if you look, MIT Technology Review had a thing in August, and it said 80% of all malware is being enabled by AI now. So they're using AI for ransomware. So ransomware attacks are now 80% AI enabled, better,
Mm.
faster. If you look at, there's a report of somebody in the UK who did a ransomware attack, non-technical user. AI did it all for him. And then there's a recent report in November from Anthropic, who writes Claude, the AI tool. And they used one of a nation state who used a Gentic AI solution to do phases with a human in the middle. So they had the AI component do one part, human interaction, AI part to the other, and they're estimating 85 to 90% of the attack was with AI. That makes it better, faster, cheaper for them to do that attack. And that report, I think, referenced 350 victims. So those are probably known victims
Oh my
off of
goodness.
it.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't want
So,
to work, right?
so how do you respond to that is the question.
Mm.
So you're not going to respond to that by compliance. Compliance you need to do to stay in business, but compliance does not equal security. So you need to be compliant, absolutely. But security requires you to understand how technology is emerging, how threats are evolving, what's ahead, and predicting ahead 1, 2, 3 years in the future, and trying to go, how can I be proactive to prevent the problem from happening? So that's what you need to go to on the mapping. So that's the part I enjoy most, but it depends. What person are you? Let's say you're the person who's really good with the compliance and you like that. Okay, you take that lead and you need to build your team to cover the rest. So the point is, whatever you're really good at,
I
do
like
it. I used to think that everybody's either a genius or idiot, depends on the question. And sometimes you walk in the room and you think you're the genius and you find out you're the idiot. Sometimes you think you're the idiot and you find out you're the genius.
you
The
like
point is, everybody needs to step up. It doesn't matter whose idea it is. What matters is at the end of the day, we've used the best idea and that everybody understands what we're doing and why, and that we're driving continuous improvement. That anybody, whether you've been here for one day or one decade, that you can raise your hand and go, I think there's a better way, or there's a problem, or I have a solution. Because all of that feeds into the best idea. So the most important aspect, I guess, from leadership is being able to harness the capabilities of your team. You hired them for their brain power. You want to communicate the strategy to them so they understand what you're trying to do. You need to get feedback loops so you can get their feedback in to drive improvement and listen to your team. You need to have good communication with your team. You need to support your team. So the concept of teams is like Winston Churchill, right? Failure isn't fatal, but people fear failure. I'm not going to ask for this job or promotion. I might not get it. I'm not going to raise my hand in the meeting. They may not like my idea. You have to let them know what's fatal is failing to try.
agreed.
Okay.
Amen.
And
Bro.
and once somebody does that once, you're building resilience because life is full of failure. I had many failures in my life. Okay. I've lost jobs twice, right? Failures. I went through my mother committed suicide in high school. My firstborn son passed away from cancer. One of my best friends committed suicide. Many other friends committed suicide that I have primarily from the military days. Later, that's a big strain from all that stuff coming in. I ended up having a divorce. From the divorce, I ended up having a bankruptcy. I had a period in my life where I worked a job where I lived in a 160-foot studio apartment in West Baltimore. I worked one job during the day and I worked night shift at a cemetery. Okay. So life has failures in it. What you do is you build resilience. Whenever you fail, you maintain a positive attitude. You do what you have to do to take care of your family or get by. You keep pushing forward, and then you grow again. Overcoming failure builds resiliency. Having failures and loss builds empathy. When things will happen to people on your team, and even if it's the same thing that happened to you, they're going to process it differently.
Mhm.
You can't know what they can feel, but
That's right.
you can know that they're going through something, and you can try to help and support them. If your team knows you have their back and you will always support them and help them, they're more willing to take risks. They're more willing not to fear failure. They're going to drive improvement. They're going to have the best career and the best life that they can have, which
Mhm.
is your number one of your goals. I think your number one goal. And if they're doing that, that will drive business outcomes. So if you do right by your people, you're going to get the business results you want.
That's right. Wow, man. That was awesome. I mean, I'm lucky to be here right now, like with you, man. This is no joke.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal. I mean, well said, spot on. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I, you've been through a lot, my man. You've been through a lot,
Well,
and your perspectives is I respect. And I couldn't
so
agree more with you. Because what's other choice? You know what you got to do forward. You have like today. You have a family today, right?
yeah.
Move forward for them and for everybody, right? So many good things are gonna happen for you, bro. I feel like um I tell people I'm a man of faith, and I tell people all the time. I say, sometimes he closes doors he won't, and he opens ones you don't see it. You know,
Well,
and
there was an exercise which was it was a team exercise is one that they did at the professor at Stowe Brown, and we went together at the team, and you drew your life. You made a picture of a river which represented your life, and it had successes and failures and heartache and everything else. It's like share what you're comfortable sharing, right? And then you get in there with the group and you share your river. And what it does is you realize that everybody in that group had amazing victories we didn't know about and amazing losses that we couldn't even feel. And it makes you closer with the people on your team because we realize this is true for everybody. We all have wins, we all have losses. The challenge is, can you overcome the loss or the failure or whatever happened that brought you down? Some people, they go down and they have a negative attitude, they have despair, and they have a hard time getting back up. And sometimes they're down for a while, right? But the goal is, you got like a 10 count, whatever, to get up. Yeah, get up before you're out, and then move forward again. Okay, be Rocky, right?
that's right. That's
Yeah, you have
right.
to keep getting up and fighting. So off of that, what I always share, my favorite book is Grit, the Power of Perseverance. And it's by Angela Duckworth, who is a professor at Penn. And she also does a TED Talk. So people don't want to buy or read a book and do the TED Talk, which is very good. Same title. I did Angela Duckworth, Grit, TED Talk. Yeah. And the point is off of this in life, it doesn't matter where you start, doesn't determine where you end. Right. And anybody in the military has seen this quite often where there's somebody, hey, he's a captain of the football team, he's a quarterback, he is really popular, and they may really struggle. And they may not overcome those struggles because they've never had that adversity.
That's right.
But you know what? When I was in the military, the kid from Eastern Kentucky whose family worked at the coal mine, and I said, this guy's not going to make it. He's just not big enough. He's not strong enough. You know what? He made it every step because his life was overcoming adversity and he knew how to persevere and not to quit. And that's the idea. Grit every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade, continuous learning. Try to learn something, technology, leadership, learn something unrelated, but have that mindset. You're always trying to improve yourself. And that cumulative value of time is what drives the results. And in this time, there's going to be failures. And those failures, you need to maintain a positive attitude,
Sure.
right? Like the optimist sees the opportunity in every calamity, I guess, and
We're lining and
the
everything.
pessimist, yeah, the pessimist sees the failure of every opportunity. So I completely misuse Winston Churchill's quote,
Yeah.
but there's where it is. But that's the idea. Maintain a positive mindset. Positive mindset, visualization. Pick up tools that work for you. Do you
Sorry.
need to do breath work? Like a
Mm,
lot in the military, you might do box breathing or different breathing techniques are good for stress regulation. Do you need to do neurofeedback, different radio wave frequencies? Do you want to meditate? That's not for everybody.
no.
Make sure you get some exercise in there. Make sure you eat right, because all of that is your mental, physical health, which drives performance.
Agreed.
And it's a marathon, right? You're not trying to work today. You're trying to build something sustainable over time. And it's habits. So it's the power of habit. As you build these positive habits, maintain a positive mindset, overcome adversity, techniques that will help you. And a technique, something different works for everybody. Find out what works for you to help you overcome that bad day you're having, that failure that you had, so you get back up. All you have to do is get back up and try again. And as long as you get back up and try again, you're moving forward. As long as you're moving forward, you're creating opportunity.
Damn. Oh, man, I don't know what to say, man. Like, you motivated the daylights out of me right now. I could imagine what it is to work with you, man. I mean, I'm looking for, have you ever considered being an executive coach, advisor?
Look, yeah, this goes to my life's a river, right? Statement. You don't know what's ahead in front of you. All right. So I'm big on making database decisions. You make decisions on the data, so you can't select an opportunity that's not there. Right. But I always stay open to any opportunity that I have. And that's why some of the different career changes, I didn't think when I was here I was going to be there,
Yeah,
but an opportunity came in.
it
And you
did.
have to just say yes. Don't I've seen so many great people who don't say yes and go, I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. I need more time.
Saw that.
So sometimes those people, I just say, I'm promoting you anyway because I
Oh,
believe in you,
yeah.
right?
Trust me.
I believe in you. I know you can do this. I've got your back. That's the thing. You have to just be open to opportunity.
So as we wrap, right? This is unbelievable. These are my favorite, where it's just freestyle. And, you're talking from the heart, and I do appreciate you sharing. And I'm sorry you went through adversity, but I understand what you did with those adversities has made you where you're at today. So, like, no one wants and wishes anybody goes through things like that. But I give you so much respect for being Rocky. I got a lot of respect for you, man. I think you paid it forward all throughout this podcast, my friend. Some of the nuggets, and I wrote down at least 4 or 5 pages of notes. What would you say as we wrap up, like two audiences, real quick, right? What would you say to that somebody that got their first opportunity to have a C-suite?
One, I'd always say practice gratitude. Gratitude keeps you humble, and gratitude keeps you to focus on your people. Okay. Number two, also that, well, from a business area, they have to understand what the business mission is. Your job is to be an enabler. So the idea is how to make what they need to do, how to get them to do it securely as easily as possible. So you got to get in the conversation at the beginning, because if you come in at the middle, at the end, you're slowing it down or you're causing rework. So you have to be very proactive. You have to be an active learner. You have to look at where technology is going, because that tells you where risk is going to be coming from. You have to look at how threat actors are evolving. That tells you how risks are coming from. You have to, with a team, the first thing the team may hate this. Whenever I do a new role, I ask them, send me a resume. Don't update it. You're not applying for a job. You have a job, but it's a quick way, because I want to read and kind of learn a little bit about what you've done in the past.
Sure.
And then I have a one-to-one call with everybody, because now I've kind of read some stuff from them. And then in the one-to-one call, you can tell me what's not in the resume
Gotcha.
into it. So you have to, yeah, because you want to know your people. You have to know where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses. Where can I give them more to do and stretch them out, right? That's how you achieve it. You always reach up, right? Up on your toes, stretching your hands out. How far do you think I can go? And a few inches higher is what you can achieve. Okay. And you don't want to overreach, but you don't want to be too conservative. You want to push everyone to grow. So you want to see where are their strengths to grow, where are there areas that we can try to improve people on, and look at constant upskilling, reskilling, continuous learning to help improve your people, because it's good for them and it's good for the company. So see how your people skill sets are, see how they map to what you need to do for the business functions. Be grateful for everything you have. Focus on people. My philosophy is people, data, process, technology, and business, right? The business kind of drives what you're achieving. Everything goes to people first.
Always.
And if you're somebody where if no bad news goes up, or you're in the meeting just to agree with all your bosses so they like you, or you focus all your intention to respond to your boss's email within 5 minutes when you haven't talked to your people in a week, you may have a good career, you may get promoted, but you're not serving your people and you're underperforming for what the company needs.
Sure.
Right? The company's performance comes from maximizing all of the brain power of all of its people.
100%. That's awesome. So let me ask you the same kind of thing, but different audience. There's been an unfortunate little stat out there. Like these kids are, kids that are going to school, coming out with, computer science degrees or whatever degree they have. They're struggling. 77% of them are not getting jobs. What advice would you give to that community right now?
That's a tough one for that one. One, maintain the mindset of being a continuous learner, because there's one area to go to school and get a degree, and there's one area to know how to apply that degree.
Right.
And some of the problems that schools where break down is people didn't learn the application part. You have to understand what your resume needs to have in it to get through the ATS system to even get to a recruiter.
Oh,
You
that's right.
you need to network. And every time you apply for a job,
Network.
customize, be honest, right? Be authentic. Okay. Never lie. Always be authentic, have high character, but customize your resume for the job and write a cover letter for every job. And a cover letter is a good area. Let's say your resume and say, I only get like 7 out of the 10 things on here on my resume. And your cover letter explaining that why you can do everything they need. Maybe you haven't had the opportunity to do something, but you have the knowledge and the passion and ability to do it, and you will exceed in doing that role. Okay. So
So
it
that,
takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to customize both of them for every single application. It's exhausting.
I can
But
imagine.
that's the best way of getting through the system. Look at different work. If your work has something where you can do work like in GitHub, or you can publish paper on something, write it up as a way to show your thought leadership.
Right.
Maybe you wrote your paper on something that you've done, or even something you did at school that you're really proud of. Include that with your resume and the cover letter. And to go, look, here's something that I believe in. This is based on what I've had the opportunity to do, but
Sure.
I can do much more than this is given the opportunity of you. So emphasize the things that you can do that aren't on the resume or the cover letter, and try to get that submitted with the resume. On areas where there's a recruiter, like in LinkedIn or whatever, that's not, um, not a blank file, but a person you could contact, send it to them. Send it, put a customized message to them. Send them your cover letter customized. Send them the resume. Send them sample of, hey, look at this of what I did on GitHub. Look at this
Yeah,
paper that I wrote on how to do it.
that's right.
Let them see what you can bring to the table for the company that's in it. Like in your company job script, you said you want to do these things. Here's something that I wrote, and I could take these skills and apply it to do that for you.
That's excellent.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
really taking action. You separate yourself from everybody else too.
Yeah, because you got to get through the system,
That's you. Right?
and you never know. There's a lot of people they're not going to care, but some people will look at it and they'll go, "Boy, that was a very thoughtful response." And oh, I could see this person's like really seems like they want the job, they're capable, they have good ideas. Maybe this is somebody I want to talk to. The
Absolutely.
goal is getting to the interview so you can compete.
Getting in at bat. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what it is. As we were talking about the World Series, right? Or you get
That's
the
right.
home run, or you get to play at the plate. You don't know. It's an opportunity is all you can ask for. And then if you get the opportunity for the interview, prep, research, background on the company and
I
on the
mean,
job description to understand what that job's going to be. So when you come in, you have better answers because you understand what they're looking for in their end.
that's right. That's phenomenal, man. Man, Al, you crushed it, man. Thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you for sharing. Those two things right there were off the chain. I mean, I hope people take notes of that too, man, because what you talked about there is it's attracting attention to you, like, and I also kind of tell these, like, let's say these kids, I say kids, or people that are just looking to get in the workforce and with a challenging market is you got to stand out and focus on opportunity versus money. Focus on opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. I always think if you get a mission that matters, and that depends, matters to you. Is it interesting technology stack?
Yeah.
Is it something you believe in? Because those are things that are going to be drivers for you. Is it something that are going to build skill?
Yeah.
They're going to help you down the road. Because the first jobs you get, you're trying to build skill.
100%.
Okay.
You want
You know,
opportunity. I got to I got to have this requirement of $100,000 because my school told me that. And I got to work from home 3 days or 4 days a week. That's a long line, right? There's a different line,
yeah.
a short line, get in the door, right? So I'm with you on that, man. No, this was great, man. Thank you so much for, taking the time. I hope you and your family, everybody, enjoy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And hopefully we help one person,
That's
then
right.
we have a victory.
100%.